The president will travel to New York City on September 22nd to address the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday, September 23rd.
Next month, Donald Trump will step back onto one of the world's most watched stages, the United Nations General Assembly in New York. On September 22nd, he will arrive to deliver his address on September 23rd, his first UNGA speech since reclaiming the presidency. In his first term, Trump's speeches at the UN were fiery, confrontational, and unapologetically nationalistic. He called out North Korea, attacked Iran, dismissed globalism, and proudly declared, "America will never apologize." Now, with his second term underway and a dramatically altered global landscape, the world waits to see. Will Trump double down on America first, or attempt to mend some of the diplomatic rifts of the past 4 years? This isn't just a routine speech. It comes as the U.S. battles multiple crises: strained trade relations with India, escalating wars in Ukraine and Gaza, rising tensions with China, and domestic polarization at home. What Trump says or refuses to say at the UN will echo far beyond New York's glass towers. So, what can we expect? Let's explore. 1. The UN stage, Trump's return. According to the White House, President Trump will travel to New York City on September the 22nd and speak at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly the following day. This will be his 5th UN address overall, but the first of his second term. Trump's past UN speeches often captured headlines worldwide. In 2017, he threatened to totally destroy North Korea if provoked, while mocking Kim Jong-un as Rocket Man. In 2018, world leaders laughed openly when he claimed his administration had accomplished more than almost any administration in U.S. history. In 2019, he thundered against Iran and declared that the future does not belong to globalists, the future belongs to patriots. And in 2020, with the pandemic raging, Trump accused China of unleashing the coronavirus and demanded the UN hold Beijing accountable. Those moments cemented Trump's image as a disruptor, someone who saw the UN not as a forum for compromise, but as a stage to project power and challenge adversaries. This year, the world wonders, will his return follow the same script or reveal a shift in tone? 2. America's retreat from multilateralism. Since returning to office, Trump has continued much of his first-term strategy of pulling the U.S. back from international institutions. His administration has cut funding for several UN programs, distanced itself from human rights bodies, and emphasized bilateral deals over global frameworks. For critics, this signals an American retreat, leaving a vacuum for China, Russia, and other powers to fill. For Trump's supporters, it's a return to realism. Why should the U.S. foot the bill for institutions that, in his view, take advantage of American generosity while undermining American sovereignty? At this year's UN, Trump will likely justify these withdrawals as necessary for U.S. security and prosperity. The speech may not focus on rebuilding partnerships, but on reaffirming his core message. America comes first, and multilateralism is optional. 3. The 80th UNGA, a world on edge. The 80th session of the UN General Assembly officially opens on September 9th, but the general debate, when world leaders deliver their marquee speeches, runs from September 23rd to 29th. The timing is crucial. This year's assembly takes place amid the Ukraine war, where peace talks are stalling and Russia continues escalations. The Gaza conflict, where international calls for a ceasefire remain unanswered. India-US trade tensions, with tariffs dominating the headlines. Climate breakdown, with devastating floods, landslides, and extreme weather events hitting South Asia and beyond. Trump's speech won't occur in a vacuum. Every word will be dissected against this backdrop of crises. 4. Tariffs and trade, the shadow of economic nationalism. Perhaps the most controversial policy Trump brings into the UN is his trade war with India. Just weeks before the General Assembly, his administration announced a sweeping 50% tariff on Indian imports, doubling down on penalties for India's continued purchase of Russian oil. Economists warn this could wipe out up to $60 billion from India's economy, devastate export sectors like textiles, jewelry, and seafood, and destabilize supply chains. Indian businesses are already warning of layoffs, and the rupee has plunged to record lows. For Trump, however, the tariffs are a tool of leverage. proof that America can use its economic power to enforce geopolitical discipline. Expect the UN speech to frame these tariffs not as protectionism, but as a bold defense of U.S. interests against countries that, in his view, undermine sanctions or fuel adversaries. 5. The Modi factor, a possible meeting on the sidelines. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also expected to attend the UNGA, with a provisional speaking slot on September 26th. This opens the door to a high-stakes bilateral encounter. Relations between the two leaders have soured. Once hailed as natural allies, the US and India now find themselves in one of the most serious diplomatic rifts in decades. Will Trump use the UN as a chance to ease tensions with Modi, or will the assembly highlight their growing divergence? Diplomatic insiders suggest Trump may seek a private meeting, though whether it produces compromise or confrontation remains uncertain. The world will be watching. 6. The Palestine question: who gets a voice? The Trump administration has already made waves ahead of the UN by denying visas to senior Palestinian officials, preventing them from attending the assembly. Officials in Washington cited security concerns and accused Palestinian leaders of exploiting the UN to push unilateral recognition efforts. Critics argue this undermines the UN's very purpose, giving all nations and peoples a voice. Supporters see it as Trump standing firmly with Israel, signaling that his administration won't allow the UN to become a stage for what he calls anti-Israel propaganda. This visa decision sets the tone for Trump's speech. It will not be about balance, but about taking sides. 7. Themes we can expect in Trump's speech. Though the exact text remains under wraps, several themes are likely: America first diplomacy. Expect Trump to reaffirm that the U.S. will not sacrifice sovereignty for multilateral agreements. Economic leverage: he may defend tariffs on India and hint at similar measures for other countries that, in his words, cheat America. Security and power: strong words about Russia, China, and Iran could feature, though framed less around alliances and more around deterrence. Immigration and borders: domestically popular issues often find their way into Trump's global speeches, particularly as a warning that uncontrolled migration destabilizes nations. Religion and values: Trump has previously used UN addresses to champion religious freedom and national traditions, themes likely to resurface. The speech will likely avoid conciliatory language. Instead, it may be another high-voltage moment where Trump challenges the very body he is addressing. 8. Allies and rivals: global reactions. European leaders: many remain wary. They fear Trump will further distance the U.S. from climate commitments and weaken NATO's diplomatic coordination. Russia and China: both will parse his words for signs of U.S. isolationism. Every declaration of unilateralism is an opportunity for them to expand influence. The global South, countries in Africa, Latin America, and Asia will watch carefully. If Trump's message dismisses multilateral cooperation, many will view it as confirmation that the U.S. is retreating from its global role. Trump's speech could embolden rivals and unsettle allies all at once. 9. The domestic dimension: playing to two audiences. It's important to remember that Trump's UN speeches are not just aimed at diplomats. They're also for his base back home. By presenting himself as tough, uncompromising, and unwilling to bow to global pressure, Trump strengthens his political brand. Clips of him dismissing globalists or standing up to critics often play well in domestic media. Thus, while the UN is a global platform, Trump will tailor his words for voters as much as for world leaders. Expect sharp sound bites, dramatic pauses, and memorable one-liners designed to dominate headlines. 10. What comes next? Possible scenarios. Trump's UN appearance could shape the next phase of his foreign policy. Several outcomes are possible: confrontation: a fiery speech alienates allies, cements U.S. withdrawal from global cooperation, and leaves rivals emboldened. Controlled assertiveness: Trump signals strength but leaves room for selective diplomacy, using the UN stage to pressure adversaries while courting allies. Surprise outreach: a less likely scenario, but Trump could shock critics by offering unexpected proposals, such as a new peace initiative or a major trade compromise. The consequences of each path are immense. A confrontational address could accelerate trade realignments with countries seeking to reduce reliance on the U.S. A balanced but firm speech might reassure nervous allies that America still values leadership, albeit on its own terms. And a conciliatory surprise, while improbable, could alter diplomatic equations overnight, particularly if tied to breakthroughs in Ukraine or U.S.-India relations. What's clear is that this year's UNGA will not just be another routine summit. Trump's speech has the potential to shape the course of U.S. diplomacy for the remainder of his term. Donald Trump's return to the UN General Assembly is not just a diplomatic ritual, it's a defining moment. On September 23rd, the world will hear whether America intends to lead, retreat, or confront its critics head-on. His words could reshape alliances, deepen rifts, or set the stage for new confrontations. What is certain is that this speech will echo far beyond the UN's iconic hall. If you found this deep dive helpful and want to stay updated on how global events shape our future, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. And tell us in the comments, do you think Trump will use the UN to rebuild bridges or to burn them?